In this very important campaign season, vote Judge Barbie. Here in our city of Pittsburgh, we recognize the important issues before us today. By supporting us at Patreon, you're helping support Erica's kids. And then fair and equal treatment to all people, including Christian Barbie in exile. Thank you. Okay, so if you listen to part 1, and this is part 2 about recovery goals and 12-step recovery, it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with what group you find yourself in. You just find a place where you can find the help you need. And by finding that one group, to me, is the first step. First step is just realizing your life is completely unmanageable. And I've learned this, and a lot of you, that's why we have peer support group, and this is peer support. And that we call the 5 a.m. recovery group, and then we have a 6 a.m. We have to recover from the 5 a.m. group, because we hit on some hard topics. And one of them, of course, is like managing our life differently, lifestyle changes, things like that. When we pay our bills on time, when we get things on the right track, things go a lot better. So it's always keep it simple and be forgiving, especially to yourself. None of us have gotten into a pattern, or maybe we walked into a situation or lived in a lifestyle where we're living out old patterns too. And a lot of times it's just recognizing that. And I look at some of the things that I wrote down here when I think of goals, like, I recognize there aren't going to always be individuals that are going to work well together. That's why they have topics like principles before personalities, topics that actually really matter to a lot of us, like lifestyle changes, setting a goal, a quit date, like for quitting smoking or losing weight. To me, a 12-step group helps manage that. Getting a sponsor, that's part of what we're doing here at this talk segment. How to overcome bad attitudes, how to be an overcomer. There's a 12-step program right now that's one of the focuses, being an overcomer. There's a lot of us can look at our family dynamic and break down where we might fit in all of it. There's always the lost children in the middle. There's the leaders of the family. They're usually the high achievers, and then the young ones, the babies of the family. Because I look at the family of origin, and you look at the family tree, and let's just assume if any of you got a notepad or legal pad, I would just go ahead and pull that out. Have a good time drawing a tree, and look at your core, your family. Look at what's going on, what keeps you grounded. Like, that's why a lot of times in homes they have rules. And grounded means setting down a reasonable set of rules that we can live with. It's called being realistic. Because I realize that a lot of the individuals are at different levels. And a lot of times what happens is we got kids that they're good in this area, but they're not good in this area. So we know where. First of all, we'll understand what our strengths and weaknesses, and we can work on those weaknesses maybe more, or we can work on those strengths. But we're going to talk about some areas where I think knowing where you are, where's your center, okay? So a good way to look at your center when you're looking at someone with PTSD is we know that during the day it's not always our fun time of the day. So we'll probably more or less rest up during the day. That's our nap time. Because if you're an early riser, like some of the little ones that we have around, they like to wake up at like 3 a.m., 5 a.m., 2 a.m. Make sure we just put 1 a.m. in there. They're early risers. They're ready to start their day. We're just trying to get some sleep. Okay, and that's because that's why we call it, but a.m. wake up call. Anyway, and if you have 4-year-olds and 3-year-olds and 2-year-olds around, you're typically thinking they're on a different clock. They're ready to get their day started at 3 o'clock a.m. So we know about the early risers. They're ready to. The early bird gets the worm, and when you have 3-month-olds and 6-month-olds like that, they're ready to start their day. We're not. But back to being grounded and getting our core being centered. I can see where people, if you're sleep deprived, tired, if you're a mom, new dad, we'll include aunts and uncles in that too, relatives, on and on. That one child can keep everybody up a lot. And if they're angry and they seem over dramatic, it's usually drawing attention. Some kids don't communicate very well, but they can communicate one thing when they start yelling and screaming. I'm pretty sure I know what's going on with the youngest of them. When they get upset like that, I know something's not right. And that's how we've learned to live our life, is that we're not on your schedule right now. We're going to take a nap, and they can go play outside. And hopefully, for the most part, when they're with the friends that are good for them, we're not as concerned. But when they're around their friends that do drugs and smoke weed, especially if you're in a rehab facility and they're bringing weed into the rehab facility, and we're talking to the nurse, and I said, nurse at the nurse's station, asking why they brought the weed in, and on and on. That might raise some concerns, and that's kind of what happens when we have kids around. There's some concerns we address, and well, sometimes we address it. We don't always address it correctly, but usually when we go to the nurse and we're a little irritated, but at that point, we've already been a little sleep deprived at this point. And if you're in the middle of moving boxes and things like that, and you find out that you have to go to surgery because moving boxes, end up with a hernia in the process. So that's been our story here. And, we like to sleep. And let me tell you a little bit about us. We like to sleep. We like to eat. We like to pray. Once in a while we like to laugh. I don't know. Sometimes, if you catch us on a good day, we might exercise. And if you really catch us on a good day, you might even get a high five. And if we're really having a good day, we might even actually go out and get a life and go out and do stuff and have friends and talk. And if you're having such a great day, you've already accomplished all these things, and all the other things become pretty easy. It's just getting past all this other hard stuff, like the sleep part. That's the biggie. If you're sleep deprived, it's probably, how your day is going to go. And any mom, dad out there, if you're feeling a little tired, I don't resent anybody for being sleep deprived. That might explain our delirium, tremors, DTs. So if you're detoxing from stress, it might have something to do with not having a little bit of sleep there. We know about that. So we let go and let God and help others. And there's a couple other things that I learned in recovery, because my dad was 20 years sober and died sober. And I know a little bit about recovery from learning from my dad. That 1, 2, 3, when you GOD, my dad used to say this, GOD, good, orderly direction. That actually really is very effective. Helping others. Helping others means you're not focused on yourself, okay? When you're helping others, the focus is off you, and you're doing something that's not only benefits you, but it benefits other people. That's why a lot of people say volunteer work is very good, because it gets you out of yourself. You're not stopped thinking about who you are. And a lot of kids that go to high school or grade school, if they're chaperoned and done it correctly, and they're learning how to help others, they grow as individuals. We're expanding their knowledge. That's why there's emphasis on Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, because we're teaching the kids not just to be good Girl Scouts, but to be wise about the world they live in. And if you like Cub Scouts or Girl Scouts, if you want to be a good scout, you're going to be on an adventure. And it's just, if it's done correctly, and there's adults that chaperone and supervise it's done correctly, then a lot of the problems that we have will easily be remedied. A lot of unhappy people are unhappy because they've, they've been robbed of a lot of things. They've been robbed of the free time, the time with their family that they deserve, and that's not always the fault of the people in it. It's just life in general. So it goes back to another topic called accepting life on life's terms, and that's really hard. Once you get to the point you realize, instead of trying to fight, it's like fighting a losing battle. You just got to accept it. It's not the way you want it, but it's the way it is. And once you get to the place of accepting things, a lot of times, things that you were upset about didn't even happen. A lot of things you're worried about didn't happen. Most of that is fear is driven by not facing things, and that we know is the acronym FEAR. There's 2 ways to look at fear. Face everything and recover, and that's a choice today. Or you can look at the acronym FEAR. Run the hell out of there. Which I know a lot of people that do that. It's really easy to run away from problems. Sometimes our problems are big, you know what I mean? And a lot of times, because you got to keep in mind, this is a spiritual program, not a religious program. People have their religious views, and that's fine. But on principle, the basics, getting the basics down. If you can basically have a basic working knowledge of this, your life is going to be a lot different. You're going to accept people right where they're at. That's why you can't get into debating with people on religious views. Like, I can't get into too many of the doctrinal arguments. I appreciate it, but spiritually, I don't think it's helpful. Knowing the pattern of alcoholism and some of us and bad patterns, it's like we're going to be at a gridlock and it's not going to work. Plus, I also learned some things that I learned from my dad again, because my dad was really good at figuring these things out. He said things like, well, 2 topics you don't bring up is religion and politics, so we learned that right away, right out of the gate. And having a sponsor or partner, I look at it this way. You have sponsor, buddy system, ranger buddy, because we deal with people with PTSD, so we'll just leave it there. Ranger buddy. Some people call it shacking up. I don't know. Shacking up with your partner and asking him to do all the rest of the stuff. But if you're one of those people who have been in this cycle of abuse or bad patterns, you learn to be once you learn to get things under control, and you learn to manage your life differently, and you say, listen, I got to separate myself from this. You are not the problem. Okay, your problems don't make you who you are. It's what you do with those problems, how you respond to life. And the way you respond to life and your reaction is 1 or 2 things. You have a choice today. You choose to be positive and encouraging, and choose your words carefully. That's one way to look at it. Choose your words carefully. And if you notice you're having a bad day and you know you're in one of those moods, you know you're going to probably say something, that's a good time I apply the 10-second rule. You count to 10 by saying 10, 4, 3, 7, 5, 2, 8, 1. And it can't be in the same numerical order either, because that's basically what it is we're disrupting the negative order, and we're going to really show you the patterns of anxiety and stress and why people have PTSD, why people are being diagnosed with these health conditions, ADD. And if you look at your diet and your nutrition, you see some of the cycle and patterns in your life. You're just going to have to pay attention. Like, obviously, the water you drink, you have to make sure the water doesn't have any contaminants. Because, just because they say public safety doesn't mean it's necessarily safe. We went past the water treatment center and it smelled like urine. So I'll take the extra step in just making sure the tap water doesn't smell like sewage. So these are just things that I've learned. Just because they say public safety doesn't mean they're necessarily safe, okay? I'm not saying go out and buy a case of 6 packs of water. But the reason a lot of kids smoke and drink is because they said, well, that's actually cleaner than some of the stuff we've drank, which could be very possible. If you look at the label and the nutrition labels, you're like, well, this is why we drink alcohol. Because we know it has alcohol in it. And it's a disinfectant. And if you're from a family that has chemical issues, which that's been my experience, we're chemical people for a reason. They did this in the 80s. They said that we were chemical people. I totally agree with that. We like anything that has a chemical in it. So once you recognize and accept the fact that you like chemicals, okay, you just got to be that much wiser. Like when I say the kind of kids that we've been around, if they're around a hose with gasoline, it's most likely, knowing the pattern that these type of individuals are, they like to smell the fumes. So we try to keep them as far away from the gas can as possible, or other inhalants. So as adults, we understand that if they like inhalants, which anybody that knows anything about inhalants, and why they call them scheduled drugs and things like that, is because people actually like that stuff too. And they will, if it means they want to be near a paint thinner and they want to do things like that, we know that they may have what they call a meth problem. And chemicals is chemicals, and some people have a chemical addiction. And there's a chemical biological change that happens in the brain, and that's why we understand that this is part of the disease. Believe it or not, it's what you smell. Some of it is also environmental in your home, okay? It could be you've been around secondhand smoke, so you're going to take the extra steps to make sure that you're not around secondhand smoke. I grew up around a smoker, so secondhand smoke is one of those issues. So as kids, we picked up cigarettes. And if you have little kids walking around and playing with things, they have a tendency to like things. That's why we always say, be careful, don't smoke around the kids, because that's how a lot of people grew up. And I grew up that way. We grew up around smokers and drinkers. So we got to take the next steps to live healthier lives. And if you've been around people like this all your life, you'll understand why we're the way we are. Anyway, so 12-step program is like that. And if you're around people that have sex addiction issues, you'll understand that sex addicts have certain problems themselves. Sex addicts, pornography is one of those issues. And we have to address those issues. Because if you're around a family where there's sexual abuse or pornography, we got to take the careful steps and recognizing these are the boundaries, these are the limitations, and there's special conditions put on those relationships, especially when we have kids around, because, you know, that's why they have ratings. That's why we ask parents to be paying attention and do their advisory. Pay attention to these things, because when you have little children around, we purposely screen this stuff. We're careful in screening, and that's why they call it FBI checks. There's a careful screening process for that reason. So let's go on to the next thing. Recovery group. Back to the focus. It's about goals, okay? So today, your goal is 1, go to a meeting. Go to an online meeting. Find a sponsor. Get a sponsor that cares. 3, find somebody that respects what you value and stick with that group, okay? And the best way to know that is you'll find that you guys all have similar qualities, okay? So if you find people that are like-minded, you're gonna gravitate people that have the same qualities. That's why Facebook has these groups, and you can do it in a group page setting, or go to Google, or, you know, in some cases, some people go to Coach Dave. I like Coach Dave. Some people don't like Coach Dave, but I like Coach Dave, and those people that go to the morning AM group will do that. So, you know, Facebook is a good social utility if it's done correctly. We don't have to overdo it. We don't have to go on YouTube every day to do it. But what we can do is manage it differently. Because by today's standards, which we're going to go to the next part of this, is online addiction, social media. Online addiction. Now, whether it has a DSM name or not, learning to manage your online presence. Like, okay, I need to manage the things differently. So what am I going to do with my social network. I'm going to change the way I do things. So if I want to do it, I have to put limits. So I'll do 2 posts a day and maybe an evening post. Okay. Now, for me, personally, I'm working at the capacity that I'm going to be doing articles for a website and posts. So that's why I post my YouTube and my Vimeo, and it'll be reposted at the news page. So what we've learned is you can use social media. It's just how you use it. You can use it for positive interaction and social interaction, and you're building your professional profile. And that leads us to the second part, because all these things are going to matter because you want to influence people positively. And what you're doing is you're choosing a new way of life and choosing new goals, new person. You're a new person. You're going about living your life differently. And if this is what you want, you're going to create a different type of people. You're going to attract different people. A lot of times what ends up happening is those people that unfriended you, you find out you outgrew each other. It's the best way to look at it. Not all people are going to be at the same place. You're not going to be the same person you are next week anyway. You don't want to be the same person you were today. You want to be changing and growing and overcoming those negative patterns. Okay, so that's the break you need. You can cut yourself off from the negative things and start over. You have always an opportunity. Today is a new day. It's going to be a new set of challenges. Today shouldn't be anything like it was yesterday. If you really want to see dramatic change, change begins today. It doesn't begin tomorrow. Okay. So all these things we put into application, we wanted to tell you guys about career. What's different about career? Your career today is far different than a job. People who work jobs usually are unhappy, but people who work in careers, they're more flexible because they look at their career, they're always building in other areas. Like for some people, it's a social media profile. Okay, they're building their circle or clientele. So that might be an aspect of your career. You're building up the education part, which we learned this from my teacher yesterday. And you're learning to educate yourself. And then on the other side of it, you might be you might be passing out business cards or setting up meetings or doing clinics. Somebody who's into fitness or is got an education degree. Like I know my brother, he has an education degree and he's got a master's degree. So his strength is he could work in a spa setting or become an education director to, a wellness program. And, it just depends. His focus is education and history. So if he's an educator and he wants to work in a history center and he has the degree and has the background and he has the education level and he has the resume, and he has an income requirement that would allow him to have a travel itinerary and speak, because he's a good speaker. He has speaking skills. He's been good at speaking events. He's very good. He's very engages with the audience really well. Okay, so I think about the things he can do. And maybe sometimes when those doors are closing, it means that opportunities arise. And a lot of times you just need to be re-inspired or somebody pointed out. But if I'm looking at like somebody's resume and the door keeps getting slammed shut, there might be a reason why. Because maybe you're supposed to work at a history center where you can work in a tourism, the aspect in tourism, this being a different career direction. All of a sudden, your whole lifestyle's changed. So now you have flexibility where you had a 9-to-5 schedule, and now it offers you different flexibility where you can work your own schedule where people actually like what you're doing, and all of a sudden your life goes from negative to completely major turnaround. And to me, somebody who has had a background in tourism, who's worked with people very well, who engages with people, who's already toured the United States and is a good speaker, I look at all your aspects and I think maybe you're looking at your career differently, and suddenly you're having like, wow, that epiphany. And that's why I say you'll have those aha moments a lot along the way. And the idea is that your whole life changes, and suddenly your income changes, and you're building your life. Let's look at that waitress. Let's see what that waitress was doing. And so that waitress starts out, she worked those 12-hour grueling hours that no one would work. She picked up the shifts that no one would work. She covered for other people, and she paid off some of their debt. She got people out of a hole. And where is she today? She took a chance on herself. She became a radio host. And she went out of her way to make friends with new people. And she built up people. And she was encouraging to others, and she went out of her way to make friendships and build friendships that actually today she's maintained some of those relationships even now after 10 years. And even while she had all these crises, there are a group of people that have stuck with her the whole 10 years. Now, let's talk about that revolving door. So those people left, and they're gone, but then they keep coming back. So maybe there's something working here. What I'm saying is, don't cheat yourself. Focus. When you're centered on different goals and you realize that some things are going to work and not everything's going to go your way, that's not the whole point. It's about putting yourself in a situation where you look at your strengths and weaknesses. So let's go ahead and run down some of the things we learned. So we learned that you got to take it easy when you have little children and you're trying to manage a home by yourself and you're on your own. And if you're children managing your own home, you weren't given the basic skills to manage a home. So I don't expect 12 and 13-year-olds to run a home, okay? And when I'm looking at 12 and 13-year-olds trying to run a home, I'm thinking to myself, these kids need parents that care, that care about what happens to their life. And I want to offer these kids some more stability. I want to offer these kids the kind of care and love a parent should be giving their kids. So maybe while their parents are off working on themselves for a while, what I want to do is be a house parent. And I want to be a house parent to these kids because I realize that these are the career goals I've been working on. I want to offer these kids a better, stable environment. I want to offer these kids an education. I want to offer these kids an opportunity to live and be kids again. I want to offer something to the adults and the parents around them that these kids, what I would like to do is if I go in and I want to barter an agreement, I want to give these kids an opportunity that where we can have a co-op with parents. And as house parents, because that's all we are is right now as house parents, we offer the unconditional love and acceptance that children need to grow and thrive. So that's number one, unconditional acceptance and love. And that's one. And then two, what I want to do is I want these kids to understand that, yeah, there are rules and boundaries, and they each have their own room for that reason. And there's a common area as a house parent. That's why we have Erica's house. Okay? And that's the whole point to Erica's house, is that this common area is where kids can gather, and they have one group, AM group and PM group. And they can pick and choose what group they want to go to. I would recommend going to both, but that's my personal opinion. But if we got kids at different ages, so we don't expect the 3-year-olds to go to AM group. We just expect them to sleep in for a change because we love them, but we need a nap. A vampire. I'm just kidding. I'm so tired. But anyway. Why do we establish Erica's house? Because we know that there's kids that, number one, need a home, and we love them, and we care about their needs. And it goes back to ground rules one. We offer unconditional love and acceptance, but that, yes, there are rules. You get your own room. You got to keep it clean. There's inspections, which is okay. And we do have a referee program for anybody who would like to be a referee, because when kids play outside, we understand that kids will fight. Okay. That's why we get them into sports, and that's why we have them focus with Coach Dave. And when Coach Dave gets on air with us really soon, he's had travel plans, but these are the things that we want to focus on, kids, because we know right now, if we're working with churches and schools and programs, what we need to do is, first of all, we got to get to the donation center, which we already have our donation center downstairs in the basement ready to go for parents. And our donations aren't just clothes, believe it or not. We have camping gear. We have other things. Because we want to offer, what we're trying to do is work with parents. Because this is kind of what they call a reprieve or retreat for parents. And on that retreat and reprieve, parents, what they need to do is they got to focus on themselves a little bit and recover. And then we gradually bring the families back together at the group setting, and then we reacclimate families back together. This period of time is only a break, but what it is a summer camp is like this. And why we call it a retreat center is because families got to get back to group. And it's called regrouping for a reason. So where is this regrouping center? And it's in Zelienople, Pennsylvania. And the retreat center that we offer is that we want families to work together. That's initially what we're trying to do. And we're not trying to be difficult, but when we have families that don't want to cooperate, we can't really work with them, and we have a solution for these problems. And the bottom line, that's what happened yesterday, is that we have an answer to some of these problems. It's just whether they're going to be willing to cooperate. And as far as I found out, that's why we talk to Victory Church. That's why we talk it, because these families need a break. We need a break. We all need a vacation. We all need a timeout. It's August, it's July, and it's August, and these kids haven't gone to summer camp. They haven't gone to the pool. These kids haven't played outside in a while. We want these kids to have the unconditional acceptance, love, and mercy that most people don't get at home, okay? And that's our recommendation. And we need you guys to support the Erica's House program, because for that reason alone, these kids and families don't know what it is to go on a vacation. They don't know what it is to have fun. And getting these people to learn to trust us, there's groups for that too. They have a trust group, therapy group, love and acceptance. If you start with love and acceptance, these kids will grow. They will thrive. They will be your new leaders. They will have the advantage that most kids didn't have before. Okay, so what happened in the past is in the past. We focus on these goals. These kids have a chance. Otherwise, what happens if they're cheated out of this? They're not going to be able to prosper and grow the way we want to see them prosper and grow. And they will face enormous challenges during the school year. And these parents, at the rate things are going, if we don't slow down and we don't get these parents involved in this group activities and do things out and have fun, create hobbies and activities, a lot of the people that are unhappy is because they're really not focused on growing and healthy goals and hobbies. That's where the love and acceptance starts. You have to love and accept them for who they are in order to get them from the negative experience, to push them out the door and deal with the world's problems. We got to realize we got to nurture them as, and I think most of you who have a church family understand that now. They need to be nurtured, and they need the care and love they need right now. As for some of us who've been up all night long over things, wrestling over things, we recognize that's why we got to get back to basics, and that's why we've done these groups. So if you have any concerns or questions about that, we do have a Patreon page, and that's a good thing. But we're trying to offer solutions. We're not trying to be difficult at all. And offering solutions of better options, people have better options, you're going to be a lot more encouraged. Otherwise, you get stuck like Chuck, and then you're unhappy and miserable, and we're back where we started. And I don't know that that's where people want to go. They want to move forward, not backward, not sideways. We don't want our problems to go sideways. We want things to go in a different direction. I want to see them and those people that work with us who want to be there, not the people that think they have to be there. If you think you have to do anything, you're not ready. Thank you for listening to our post. Please help and support us by voting for Judge Barbie for Judge, who understands the issues that kids face today. support us at Patreon and continue this great program at Erica's house with Erica's kids. Thank you.